All right, so let's now engage Ayesha Kajee. She's an international relations analyst, and she joins us now via video link. Ayesha, thank you so much for your time. Let's start with this. I mean, President Zelensky's first official state visit to South Africa, as significant as it does come under a number of backdrops, including, of course, the core between Ramaphosa and Trump. It also comes as Russia launches that wave of deadly attacks against Kyiv early this morning, hours after President Trump accused Zelenskyy of harming peace talks. Just give us then your analysis of the diplomatic significance of this working visit by Zelenskyy and, of course, the dynamics that align it.
I think the diplomatic significance of this visit is huge. It's the first visit by a Ukrainian head of state, and it augurs well for economic and diplomatic ties between the two countries. There's huge potential for both countries to strengthen bilateral ties, particularly economic ones. South African agricultural, agribusiness producers, producers who beneficiate agricultural products such as wheat, are quite keen to import wheat from the Ukraine. And also agricultural concerns in South Africa are also keen to import fertilizer from the Ukraine. The Ukraine, in return, sees the potential not only for importing South African goods, but also for importing from the region and exporting to the region. And of course, South Africa could view Ukraine as an opening into some of the Eastern European market. So on an economic level, it's a quite significant visit, particularly in terms of the deteriorating economic ties with the United States in recent months, between the United States and South Africa. On the other hand, on the diplomatic front as well, this is an important visit because South Africa has taken a role including President Ramaphosa's visit almost 2 years ago, to try and secure a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Russia has traditionally been a huge ally of the ANC-led government. It was an ally of the ANC during the apartheid years and supported, the anti-apartheid fight in South Africa and outside of South Africa, working for change in South Africa. So that is also important. And President Ramaphosa emphasized that and strengthened that, or re-strengthened that, with his call to Mr. Putin on Monday. Yeah. But I think what no one, and of course also the other thing is that the EU is seeing a significant role for South Africa as a contributor towards global peace and global trade. And South Africa has been seen to strengthen its ties with the EU in recent months as well, coming off the back of worsening diplomatic relationships with the United States. As important as the United States has been both a trade and diplomatic partner in the past, South Africa has not allowed itself to be bullied in that way by the United States, but is still very willing to keep channels of communication open, channels of dialogue open. And we saw that with the appointment of Mr. Kajee as special envoy last week. So there is potential for that. But right now, South Africa seems to be moving closer to Europe and also trying to maintain its relationship with Russia while still forging a new relationship with the Ukraine. Of course, that has changed today, with more than 80 missiles striking the Ukrainian capital.
Ayesha, if I can come in there, I want to just talk about that call between, President Ramaphosa and Trump. I mean, I want us to address that surprise announcement, as it were, by Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that he had spoken to Trump. I mean, this is the second call between the two presidents, but it does come as US and SA relations are very strained at this moment. I mean, what does this development mean in terms of just the bilateral relations between the two countries? What can we read into this, particularly because, South Africa does have the G20 presidency. It will be handing over to the US. We haven't also seen a lot of engagement between the two countries. Of course, we know that there are deep-rooted, serious relationship breakdowns that we've seen, throughout the past couple of months. So just, give us a light in terms of what does this call actually mean?
Well, I think the call comes on the back of possibly a realization by the Trump presidency and Mr. Trump's aides, perhaps, who perhaps are more likely to be able to gauge the real politic behind the breakdown in relations between South Africa and the US. Because it is quite obvious that, there was an attempt to bully South Africa on the international relations front, and that failed. In fact, we've seen South Africa, for example, increase aid to Palestine, for example. Although we've seen the US decrease its aid or end its aid to South Africa, we've seen the whole issue of the tariffs on South Africa, etc. But that has not deterred the South African presidency's and DIRCO's commitment both to the Palestine question and to global peace solutions, as well as to readdressing the miscommunication on our land expropriation bill. And now that we have a special envoy with suitable gravitas in the form of Mr. Kajee, I think some of that disinformation, and note I call it not misinformation because I do think it's been deliberate, including on the part of some of the members of our GNU, and that's shameful in and of itself. There is now a real attempt to address the misinformation and disinformation around land expropriation and the so-called genocide of white farmers and all that kind of I will say quite mythical hype, frankly. So given that that is happening, and given that hopefully, if not Mr. Trump himself, his advisors and those close to him are coming to the realization, firstly, that they've been misinformed on the land thing, that we will not be bullied on that front or the Palestine front, and also thirdly, that US corporates who benefit from their relationships with South Africa, whether they are listed in this country or whether they do business in this country or see this country as a gateway to the region and to greater Africa, etc., will be loath to cut those ties. And I'm sure there is a behind-the-scenes trade and economic lobby on the Trump presidency actually saying these things and saying, in the long term, this is going to be to the detriment of US economy. So we need to repair this relationship.
Ayesha, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate your time. Ayesha Kajee is an international relations analyst joining us there, of course, just unpacking President Zelensky's official working visit to South Africa.